Gluten will affect almost everyone on some level, and Dr. Pedram Shojai talks about why. In this episode, Dr. Shojai goes into how gluten affects our gut, how it affects our liver, and how it affects our brain, as well as why so many of those detox programs are just complete bullshit.
I don't know a single person who's gotten an Oura ring who hasn't been convinced that they're an asshole to their body if they drink alcohol. You just see your sleep quality go, whoa.
Dr. Pedram Shojai was a Taoist monk, and for several years, he came back to the real world to make a bigger impact. And he's a doctor of Oriental medicine and Qigong master who studied Kung Fu and Tai Chi for decades. In this episode, Dr. Pedram Shojai talks about the real importance of connecting the gut to the liver to our overall health, as well as giving us real-time exercises that we can do to completely shift our nervous system from unsafe to fully safe. All right, man. I'm so honored to have you here. I know a really good amount about your past and like to have a monk here doing what you did and the transition. It's like, it's the real deal. You're the real monk who's made the transition, and shout out to that. And I seen you talk about other things around that. But anyway, you said something that really put a light bulb over my head. And it's when people go on vacation and they go all out. They go, okay, I'm going to eat everything. I'm on vacation. Forget it. Like I'm in Italy, all the food here. I can eat whatever I want. It's better than in America. And for the most part, they feel kind of good. But you came back and you sort of went downhill with your sleep. And you probably thought, oh, circadian rhythms, probably I'm just off from all the travel. But that wasn't it. What was going on in your body that was really disrupting your sleep after you went on a vacation?
Yeah. So, I'm trained to go after the usual suspects, right? So it's like, all right, it's obviously, time zones. Now you start looking at, wake sleep cycles. You start saying, okay, I'm going to exercise in the morning. I did all the usual. I used to own a sleep lab, right? Like, so I know sleep medicine really well, and none of it was working. And so I thought to myself, all right, so you're stressed out. We're in Portugal, right? And with family and doing the vacation thing, everyone's telling me their gluten's better, their dairy's better, go for it. So I went weapons free. And, when you're on vacation, your cortisol levels come down. When you're on vacation, you sleep in more. For me, it's because I don't have those two Labradors, on me in the first thing in the morning.
That's right.
And so you don't feel it. You come back and then you're like, okay, what's my stress? What's this? Why? And I started digging into the literature. I'm a monk. I know how to relax. So I'm going, why is there so much arousal in my system? And so the Western medical algo for that is just a whack-a-mole, right? Just bring down the arousal, shut up, baby, stop crying, and sleep. And so I'm like, man, I feel like my body's trying to tell me something. What is it? And so I dug deep and found all this literature on endotoxemia, creating these kind of anxiolytic states, creating all of these alarm signals in the body. So what's endotoxemia? You have gluten, you have dairy, you have inflammation around your gut lining. Then you have LPS, you have lipopolysaccharides from gram-negative bacteria crossing over the blood-brain barrier, crossing over the gut lining into the bloodstream, and you effectively have an attack on your body. And so I'm like, all right, yeah, I could see that happening. What is this? And so you start looking at the subtle messaging, the language that the body has to speak. My body don't speak English.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, how is the body telling you I don't feel right? It's like, okay, well, I'm subtly anxious. I can't sleep. My mind is racing. What is that coming from? And so I started really digging into the alarm signals that come when the body is trying to tell you something's wrong. It happens with environmental toxins. It happens when you're taking substances that the body doesn't know how to conjugate, the liver in particular. And all of this ends up hitting the liver because the endotoxins from your gut end up having to get cleared through the second pass of the liver. First pass is, the Tylenol that you had, the alcohol that you had. Second pass is these LPS. And so the liver is just getting hotter and hotter, working super hard, and the liver's in charge of your clock genes, the circadian rhythm of your body. And so I'm like, took 2 weeks, healed the gut lining, did a quick liver detox, dude sleeping like a baby again. And then I went back to all of the patients, and this as a doc, right? Like, it's the ones that get away.
Yeah.
right? It's really easy to be like, ha, I saved the day, I fixed that. It's the people that you're trying to help that don't get better, that haunt you. So then I went back looking at, old cases, being like, holy crap, I missed it, right? I didn't see this back in the late 90s. I didn't see
Hmm.
this in 2002.
When those days where no one was really talking about it, right? First of all, we weren't even really talking about gluten to the level that we're talking about now, or, there was doing milk campaigns that does a body good. So we were following that. We weren't really thinking about the depth of what endotoxemia can do in our whole body, especially in the liver. The liver is overworked. How, at this point, people viewing and listening, let's just do roughly what percent of us you think are just backed up with our liver and just need that support, like a liver detox, like you said?
I mean, without being hyperbolic, I would say 99%.
Ooh,
Though,
that's
dude,
without being.
dude, I mean, it's really sad. I just finished a 6-part series called Homesick Home about all the crap lurking in your house
Oh,
that makes
love
you
that.
sick. And it's just like, the sofas have flame retardant chemicals on them.
Hmm.
You walk outside, the diesel fume. You have mold in the houses. I mean, there's so many things that are overwhelming our systems. And so and this is kind of a deeper dive, but I'll just touch the surface and we could go if you want, is environmental toxins are kind of a jab cross because one, they signal to the liver, say, hey man, you got to work. And so the liver's trying to get this stuff out. But simultaneously, they snuff out the mitochondria's
Hmm.
ability to produce energy. So now you got less cash to work with and more bills,
Mm.
right? It's just a bad deal. So we're all suffering from this energy deficit of the mitochondria not being able to produce energy as effectively.
Mhm.
And the liver is just like, man, I'm trying, right? And so, put those together, it's almost everyone we know, right?
Yeah.
Everyone walking around, and I don't care if you live in a rural environment because those guys are spraying pesticides all over
Yeah.
stuff, right? It's very difficult to avoid it. I tell all my patients, you just got to look at having a detox lifestyle. Avoid the stuff coming in, but you have to just always be pushing your detox pathways in a world that's increasingly toxic. Like
Mm.
it's just sorry, I'm trying. I do movies on environmentalism and I do this stuff, right? But it's not stopping the petroleum-based economy. So if you live in it, you can't just ignore it. You got to do something about it.
You gotta do something, and that's just with the assumption that we're all being exposed to that stuff, like the diesel fuel. A lot of these homes that have mold, a lot of these homes with we don't. A lot of people don't even think about their couches or think about their bed or think about that particle board wooden table that they just got from Amazon right next to their bed, and these fumes and their exposure. So we think about the liver, and you talk about wow, like our mitochondria is beat up from it. Our liver's trying to utilize all this energy to clean us out. How can we at home support it? What are some of the things right
Mm.
now, viewers and listeners going, okay, yeah, I'm in that 99%.
Mm-hmm.
What can I start doing?
Mm-hmm. Rule number one in the martial arts is if you stand in the ring, you're getting punched in the face. I don't care how good you are, right?
Okay.
So you got to look at the things that are offensive, right? It's like, okay, is it my mattress? Is it the rubber thing underneath this carpet? So you got to start kind of looking at the things in the home that are outgassing, that are creating problems, right? Air quality, water quality. Stop the inputs because the liver's pretty darn good when you give it a fighting chance, right? Then, as much as you can, leafy greens, multicolored vegetables, the polyphenols every single day in your life. Not only is that for the nutrients that you onboard, you're feeding those polyphenols, you're
Mm-hmm.
feeding that fiber to the microbiota that then create kind of your second skin before things come into your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've found that the microbiome being intact is the insurance policy. And that's where we start to really falter, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then it just doubles down, and then the environmental toxins get worse. Then you start getting the wrong bacteria, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you start with taking the offensive things out of the house, and we can go through a list of that, and then stop eating sugar routinely because it brings down your immune system. It causes inflammation. That's the first part, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I think that everyone should have milk thistle in their life, right? Like I think that there are certain botanicals that just need to be part of your life.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, it's easy to say, well, you should just eat more cilantro and you'll be fine. I've seen patients take more cilantro than they should, and they weren't fine, right? So I think chelation and the role of
Yeah.
the physician in this is important because it's very challenging when you start chelating heavy metals if you do it wrong,
Hmm.
right? I think a lot of the zeolites on the market are already imbued. The zeolites have such an affinity for heavy metals
Hmm.
that in the industrial manufacture of the zeolite that you're taking, it's already pulled heavy metals and now you're eating them, right? So
Oh,
there's a,
wow. Okay. So
yeah,
that
there's
you're
a lot
taking
of
them
that.
in there and they already have heavy metals in there.
Yeah, the thing that you brought in the cop and he, walked out with your TV, right? Like it's just, it's a
Yeah.
bad deal, right?
Yeah.
And so you got to be careful with some of the products out in the market, but it doesn't take away from the need for detox on a regular basis. I think people also, like we're in LA. I think every time someone gains 3 pounds, they use the word detox instead of diet now, right?
Yeah.
And so
That's big.
detox is just, it's getting thrown around too much.
Yeah.
To detox correctly means phase one, phase two, 2.53 of liver conjugation. It means you got to be pooping, right? It means you got to
100%.
be clearing your bile. I mean, there's methodology to this, and it's not just a kale smoothie, right?
Hmm.
And so there's a lot of trite junk that's worked its way into wellness and detox
Yeah.
that I also caution people around because the end user, the consumer, doesn't know the difference, right? And
Yeah.
the med heads say detox doesn't matter, and then there's the guy at Whole Foods that's trying to sell you a bunch of stuff, and he doesn't really know what's going on either.
100%. And then you look at the med heads and they're looking at those like detox boxes that they're not even structured in any way that it's going to work. It's a business, right? But they're not looking at like the proper stuff, like you say, when you're taking into account liver conjugation and bile and proper cleansing. Um, Milk thistle, I love that. Is there any other supplements or herbs that you really like that okay, hey, this one's really good for your liver? Start paying attention to this.
Yeah, I think to be clear, I think I'm a very kind of personalized medicine guy. So I'm going to
Yeah.
say that as a caveat is to
Hmm.
say everything for you is different, right? But I think you obviously need your B vitamins for your liver to be working correctly, pure and simple. I think that also bringing down inflammation systemically, I like curcumin, I like berberine for those
Mm.
because what that does is it sets up the precondition for the liver to not be dealing with all the inflammatory
Hmm.
stuff that's
Mm.
coming in. And then at that point, I mean, what does the liver need? When people tell me, what do I take for my liver? My question back to them is, how many times have you pooped
Yeah.
today?
Well, why is pooping so important then for the liver?
It's like, okay, so you have this place called the kitchen that has these little white bags of trash,
Yeah.
and no one remembers to do their chore and take those little white bags out to the trash can before it goes out to the street. And so, all along that kind of chain of custody, the rotting food and the gunk has to work its way out of the house. And at any point, if the guy, if Tuesday my son forgets to put the trash cans out, I get a bunch of stinky trash all week.
Hmm.
But any given day, if we don't take the stuff out of the house, then the kitchen smells,
Yeah.
right? And so the garbage truck is the poop. And you have to have minimum two, if not three bowel movements a day
Mm.
to really have your detox pathways working.
Mm.
What are the three ways you get this crap out? No pun intended, right? It's the urine, the feces, the sweat, right? Most people aren't sweating enough, going to and from work, not really getting the cardiovascular or the heat induction to sweat out whatever toxins there are. Urine, whether or not you're drinking enough water, right? And
Mm.
but then feces, I mean, I routinely would have patients that would come in and say, yeah, I poop once a week.
Oh,
Full stop. Let's start there,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. 100%.
Got to get it out, right? And then the liver has a place. It has to go through the bile ducts, right? It has to go through the portal vein. Like there are places where the liver gets backed up in vasculature, right? Because it can't really push, and it can't push the toxins into the large intestine.
Hmm.
And when it can't do that because the large intestine's backed up, I mean, again, we're in LA. We all understand what traffic looks like,
Hmm.
right? If there's an accident at the off ramp, the freeway's not doing well.
Yeah. Yeah. We're hurting. And to think that people, oh my God, like hearing someone go, if I remember when I was in practice, I would hear sometimes like, I never heard once a week. Like I heard some people like 3 every 4 days, but I'm like, oh, no, no, that's not, no, no, my gastroenterologist said it was normal. I said, no, 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 that's not, we need to, your body doesn't want that, you know? Um, And we think about even from a hormonal level, right? Like it's so important to have balanced hormones. You got to be pooping every single day. Um, we don't eat enough fiber though.
No,
No, nowhere near.
no.
Okay. So we want to make sure that everyone's eating good amount of fiber, getting it in there, at least getting, 10, 15 grams, 20 grams per meal, just getting it in there and starting a lot of water, a lot of movement. You got to get pooping. You got to get pooping. Constipated is not the move when it comes to overall liver detoxification. And I love that we're talking about liver detoxification because, and I like that, I really like that you said detox, like the whole word of like weight loss and how we're using detox all over social media. It's crazy. It's crazy. People are making so much money off the word detox right
Yeah.
now.
And it's dangerous.
It's
It's
dangerous.
dangerous. If you start to productize a very complicated, personalized thing that someone has to do with different history, different mitochondrial health, different
Mm.
cellular, capacity, and you just productize it and you follow some influencer, man, it's dangerous.
I'm always on the lookout for research in health and longevity. Living longer, but really feeling good in your body while you're living is an utmost priority for me. And let me tell you, I've stumbled upon something that can really, really, really do some good in your life. It's something that I've been using for a year now, urolithin A. It is amazing stuff. Now look, urolithin A might sound like a mouthful, but stick with me because it's good stuff. What's got me so excited about urolithin A is it is one of the first postbiotics shown to have major health benefits. If you're not familiar with postbiotics, they are the active nutrients in your body that are made during digestion, and they're becoming a hot topic in health circles. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Clinical studies have shown that 500 milligrams of urolithin A alone can significantly increase muscle strength and endurance without any other lifestyle changes. Yes, and there's research on this showing that it's muscle endurance and muscle power. As someone who's always been preaching about the importance of maintaining muscle, I've done shows on this for longevity that caught my attention big time, and it's became one of the handful of supplements that I take every single day. I've been taking Mighty Pure from Timeline Nutrition for about 6 months now, and I gotta say, I've been impressed. I noticed it improved my recovery time and just my workouts overall, feeling more sustained energy throughout the day. And what I love about Timeline is their commitment to research. They are a global leader in urolithin A research. A lot of studies they're connected to, and their products are NSF certified, high quality. It gives me the confidence that this is pure and it's on the label is what you're getting. And guess what? They made a special deal for you, the Heal Thyself listener. If you go to timelinenutrition.com/DRG, that is TIMELINENUTRITION, nutrition.com/DRG, use the code DRG. You're going to get 10% off of your first order of MitoPure. Recently, I came across a groundbreaking study. It's the largest ever done on light with 87,000 participants. And it turns out that exposure to nighttime light can significantly increase a person's risk for self-harm and various psychiatric disorders like anxiety, like PTSD, like depression. What? Did you guys even know that? But let me tell you something more. The real kicker is that the study found that circadian rhythm disturbance is a common feature in many psychiatric disorders. In other words, we have a constant exposure to artificial light that can be a major environmental risk factor to all of these mental health issues that are plaguing all of us. We're using more and more light. We're on our phones more. We're on our TVs more. And wondering why we have so many mental health issues. Well, here's Raw Optics. It is the best of the best premium blue light protection eyewear out there. It has been ones that I've been using for 6 years now. I'm such a big fan of the product. And it's designed to protect us from artificial light during the night and during the day. I got the yellow ones during the day when I'm on my computer. I was just using them this morning, right before this podcast, and I'll be using the red ones at night to help me go to sleep. And the goal is to realign our rhythms with nature, to optimize how we feel and function. I've been using Raw Optic glasses for a long time, and I love them so much that I'm gonna make my own collab pair with Raw Optics because they're just so good. It's a staple. It's like a top 5 health staple that you can use. My sleep quality is better. I'm always going to sleep earlier when I put on my red ones immediately. I gave one to my partner, the yellow ones, and she said that she has much less headaches at work and less tension around her forehead. We undergo all of these issues, but we don't notice how much it might just be the light that we're being exposed to nonstop, the artificial ones. So I got a special offer for you. Visit rawoptics.com/DRG today. Use the code DRG for 10% off of any pair of Raw Optics stylish frames. That is RAOPTICS.com/DRG. The gut, you mentioned it, and you worked on the gut and it helped you in the liver and it helped you sleep better after that trip. And actually, a lot of you viewing, listening, if you ever took a trip and came back and you're still not sleeping, listen to what my guy just said here. Very, very, very important. Um, what were some of the things that you found that are really helpful for gut? I know it's
Mhm.
personalized too, but there's a lot
Mhm.
of people, and I like to know what percent you think that are listening or viewing that have some sort of dysbiosis or gut infection or something going on.
Mhm. I think the book says we're 85% of us have some degree of dysbiosis, and 50% of chronic disease is now directly associated with dysbiosis and endotoxemia. I mean, whoops, we found it,
Hmm.
right? That's the facts. The inconvenient truth is it has to do with what you put in your mouth next time you're hungry,
Hmm.
right? And that's the hard part because the model is trained around saying, "Well, man, just eat what you want. We got pills for
Yeah.
that." But it goes down to, and listen, I'm coming from a place where I spent 3 years of my life doing a 10-part docuseries on the gut, then a 8-part docuseries. Like I've been in the labs, I've been with the research scientists who have done this work, and we could get all complicated, but I'll boil it right back down to saying you got to have a lot of vegetables that have different colors, right? So that you're getting the rainbow, you're eating the rainbow, at least two different colors each meal. You have to tiptoe into it because too much fiber too early for
Hmm.
someone who's been, leading the standard American diet and
Yeah.
all that can back you up and make you worse if you're not careful. Um, Fermented foods. If you start looking at blue zones and the data behind what some of these folks were doing, fermented foods was a big deal. Fermented foods are proving to, it's not the probiotics in the fermented foods. We're like, oh, you're going to get some, acidophilus from the,
Yeah.
no, it's the postbiotics. It's what's
Mm.
happening, the butyrates. It's some of the stuff that's happening, the magic of this fermentation that we're finding is actually more efficacious. And so eating fermented foods, again, tiptoeing into it. If you have histamine reactions, you got to
Yeah.
back down a little bit. Really important. But again, we go back to the martial arts example, right? You stand in the ring, you're getting punched in the face. Don't eat the cheese burrito if cheese bothers you, right? I think we saw these commercials during the Olympics, right? It's like, oh, just eat it in Alka-Seltzer, whatever
Yes.
it is,
Yes.
right? And that right there is the devil. That right there is the false promise of an irresponsible lifestyle being solved by a pill or an intervention that you could just pay, it's like Advil for your tequila headache,
Hmm.
or you could just not drink so much, right? And so that is where I always start people and say, man, listen, give me 3 weeks off of gluten and dairy and let's cut your sugar. Let's see, just elimination provocation diet. Let's see how you feel. And then once we've gotten you down to that baseline, we'll see what we got to do. Right. But I think, and listen, I've done, entire episodes. I've spent, days in these labs doing fecal transplants, and there's all sorts of really cool, innovative stuff, right? Coming from the science of the microbiome.
Hmm.
And everyone in the West, it's just we have this weird mental pathology where we're just like, man, I'm so far gone. Where's the Hail Mary? Where's the Hail Mary? We're down, 34 points, you in the end zone, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just like, come on, man, fecal transplant. You're going to take someone's blended up poop and shove it up your own butt because you're not willing to change your diet.
Right.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I guess that's a strategy, or we can work on what goes down first, right?
Yeah.
And so I think well before all of those aggressive interventions are eat till you're 50% full, stop. Chew your food, stop. If you need digestive enzymes, amylase, protease, hydrochloric acid, those are things that will help you break down the food, help you extract energy from food. And to me, it's just basic energy economics, right? Like if you're eating food, it's to gain calories, to extract energy and nutrients, obviously, but extract energy from this thing that you're breaking down so
Mm.
that you can power your life.
Yep.
So, very simple math is, did that meal that was supposed to give you energy just make you more tired? Okay, we got a problem,
Hmm.
right? So, how do we now need to break down that meal? Are you not, is your energy economics so poor that you can't synthesize hydrochloric acid to break down the big
Hmm.
meat that you had or whatever it is? And so really getting into the brass tacks of digestion and assimilation and then working to slowly nudge the microbiome back over 3, 6, 9, 30 months, right? And get it to a place where now you have a robust ecosystem of friendlies that are offsetting and conjugating
Mm.
hormones and synthesizing energy. I mean, it's just miraculous what the microbiome does, right? But there's so much that happens there when you have a healthy ecosystem. But it's like Gangs of New York. You don't just walk in and be like, hey, you two, cut it out,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
gotta you gotta work with these guys, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you gotta have them talks. You gotta work through, and they all have biofilm. They all have lived there for a very long time. So walking in and just dropping napalm and then saying there's a new sheriff in town, we're finding isn't as effective as slowly nudging the neighborhood
Over
into
time.
a healthy place, right?
Mm. So then, do people love probiotics? It's a I don't, probably $1 billion industry at this point. Do you love them? Do they work? Should everyone be on a probiotic? How do you feel about them?
Can I cuss on this show?
For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
You're the
okay.
second person today that
Yeah,
asked that.
I mean,
Okay.
you gotta
Yeah.
you gotta know.
For sure.
Um, I think most probiotics are absolute bullshit.
Mm.
The early, like the people who first brought probiotics were like fermentationists from Eastern Europe, and I've talked to a lot of the people, like founding fathers, mothers of the industry, and there is a strong sentiment amongst people who have been around this for a very long time that there is no shelf stable. It's bullshit. It's got to come cold. These
Mm.
organisms are alive. I mean, there's a whole thing around probiotics, and the soil-based organisms
Yeah.
are now, they're so cheap to make. It's like dirt, not necessarily proven that they're good for you, right? And so there's a lot of controversy in the probiotic space. I'm very careful around prescribing probiotics. Now, listen, if someone's on amoxicillin for 10 days, does it hurt to just jam, a big bolus of I don't think so. I've seen good results with that. But I think people that are consistently eating a standard American diet and taking probiotics as like, Sunday,
Yeah.
repentance, I don't think it works. And I don't think it is a healthy way to think about it.
Mhm.
I think fermenting your own food, getting your hands in the dirt, and really looking at interventions that come from life, right? I think those interventions are the ones that stick.
Mm. And you just said like fermented foods. We can integrate that into our lunch and dinner, or breakfast and lunch, or breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and bringing them in here, we're going to notice over time how that affects us positively. And I love that you said it's like a neighborhood that has a slow change over time. We want it fast. So
Hmm.
give me the best probiotics, and in 4 days, I want everything to feel better, and I'm doing better. And the postbiotic you mentioned, but for the viewers and listeners who don't know what postbiotics are and the magic of them, what are they?
Mostly the butyrates, those are the ones that we've studied the most, right? So they're these kind of short chain fatty acids that are coming off of, they're basically bacterial poop. So certain bacteria poop things that are good for us that we could use, and certain bacteria, like the gram negatives, will poop the polysaccharide, the lipopolysaccharides that end up being toxic for
Yeah.
us and becoming endotoxins. And so these butyrates are starting to show some really interesting promise, healing the gut lining, helping with, our healing at the level of the gut, but
Mm.
also kind of crossing over and helping bring down inflammation. And like every week, there's something new on the butyrate,
Mm.
the butyrate class. So I think that, I'm not a Luddite, right? Like I think it's very easy to be like, oh, just everything natural. There's some really interesting stuff coming out of the butyrate research. And I think that taking butyrates is probably better for you than not. But I think that some of the natural healthy butyrates that are formed in our own ferments are amazing.
Mhm.
Right now, do I recommend if someone comes in with severe endotoxemia and gut dysbiosis, or would I put them on like a tributyrate or something? Yeah, I do.
Mm.
I do. But I don't want them on that for more than a couple months, right? I will give you a shot in the arm to say, let's get you back on the road. But I want your system to start producing
Mhm.
butyrates,
Mhm.
or else I'm in the business of keeping you alive, right? Which is the traditional medical model.
Right. Just with some supplements or something like
Oh
that.
man, just keep coming back,
Just
baby.
keep
This is
coming
great.
back.
You should see my
Yeah.
car,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
that,
Right.
that's
That's
the
it.
problem. That's
Yeah.
the problem,
That's how they approach it. Gluten. I'd be remiss not to talk about this. You mentioned how gluten can affect someone going overseas, coming back. But like when you talk to a conventional doctor, they say, well, no, hold on. If you have celiac disease, that's the only reason to really avoid gluten. Like, how serious is gluten intolerance or gluten sensitivity? How often are people misdiagnosed with other things, not knowing that the root is that?
Yeah.
And is it causing some destruction in our gut and our whole system? You know, as a doctor, I'm always harping on the importance of good sleep. I have been such a fan of Birch Beds for so long. It is one of our longest sponsors, and I got a lot of love for them. Everyone in my family has a Birch Bed. Everyone. And there's a reason why. It's the cleanest bed. It's the most comfortable bed. I have a Birch Luxe natural mattress. It's been years now, and I got to tell you, it's the best. It's a game changer. I love it. My partner, first time she laid on it and just gave it a go for the night, loved it. She's sleeping over all the time because I think she just loves the Birch more than me. And look, Birch is amazing, right? It's committed to organic, natural materials. We're talking about organic cotton, organic wool, 100% organic latex, and the wool is sourced ethically. Of course, me, you know how I am with animals. It's got to be like that. And this is such a company of high integrity. And let me tell you something that may surprise you. Many mattresses out there contain fiberglass. That's a flame retardant that you breathe in for the life of the bed that is causing respiratory distress and inflammation in your body. You know, but I don't know why many companies aren't just using wool instead. It's a natural flame-resistant substance that can go into bed. There's no fiberglass in Birch, no polyurethane hormone-disrupting foams, no off-gassing, just natural, clean materials. It is so comfortable, and because of the components that are in there, I'm not sleeping hot. It's cooling, it's temperature regulating, it's got organic materials. I'm breathing in the clean stuff. My back pain is better. I feel rested. I sleep deep. Birch is the best, period. Now, I want you to try it out. I really do. If you're looking for a bed, this is the time. I know it's a big decision, but this is the time. This is the one you go with. I'm telling you. Birch has a 100-night sleep trial with a 25-year warranty, and they even offer in-home setup and removal of your old mattress. Do you know how annoying it is to move an old mattress? I've been through it, especially when I got my Birch. So if you're looking for an upgrade in your sleep game and it's just an overall better, healthy choice for you, your environment, your home, get yourself a Birch. Right now they're having a Labor Day sale. It makes it a perfect time to give it a try. You get 25% off of any Birch mattress plus 2 free EcoRest pillows. Just go to birchliving.com/DRG. That is BIRCHLIVING.com/DRG.
I think so. If you ask Tom O'Brien, who's a good friend of mine, and he cites Alessio Fasano's work at Harvard, and he's at UMass or something now, but they did a pretty exhaustive look at this and found that every single human has issues with gluten tearing their gut lining, period. Gluten just does that. So now it's a question of saying, how you do with punches in the arm, right? Like, are you cool if I punch you in the arm? And you're like, well, I'm a big, strong guy. It's not going to bother me. Or it's going to hit my 8-year-old. She's going to fall down and cry for a week, right? And so what is the thing taking the punch, and can it take another punch? And so what happens is we are living in a world with increasingly toxic environment, increasingly synthesized, manufactured food. And so our gut lining, decade over decade, ends up getting more and more compromised, and gluten messes that up. So it's like, look, if I'm on vacation and I'm sleeping in and whatever, making love and enjoying my life and really like my cortisol's reset and look at that sunset, gluten doesn't bother me. Right. But if I'm in the ring and there's, bullets flying and there's just, lower sleep and all of it, it's like, whoa, my joints are getting sore. So what happens is the gluten is always hitting you. Can you take the hit? And can you afford that hit based on your bank account of resilience? And that's where I think the conversation needs to shift, is more of a vitalistic model. Is like, look, we just had this the other night, right? So I'm gluten-free, dairy-free. We're at my sister's house and they got this new pizza oven. So I'm like, this is great. I'll bring my G-free, dough
Delicious.
and my faux cheese and I'll hang with y'all, right?
Yeah.
There was just a bunch of gluten powder, like wheat flour inside the thing. And I'm like, man, I'm not going to tell this guy he's got to clean his oven.
Right.
Right. I'm not that kind. I don't get sick. Right. So I'm just like, it'll be fine. I like dusted it off and I ate it. Next morning, I'm like, man, my knuckles are so
It's crazy, man.
right.
It's crazy.
Like I felt 10 years older because I know the difference when I'm on and off gluten because I've been off it long enough to know what like my baseline feels like.
Mhm.
Right. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, I could just take an Advil and tell people I'm getting old and complain about, the world, or I could stop taking shit that hurts me.
Mhm.
Right. And so gluten hurts humans. Full stop.
Mm.
Now, can you take it? Do you have the resilience? And so, I overdid it. I went to Portugal and we were, having a good summer and just like, hell yeah, I'll take the pasta. That's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
Right. And we I went over the line. My body was just like, nah, you know what? Now I'm mad at you.
Mm.
But because I don't speak English, you are gonna have to decipher this because you're stupid every night as you're laying there staring at the ceiling, wondering why you can't sleep.
Yeah. Whoa.
Right. And so it was school of hard knocks, right? My gut lining doesn't speak English, and I don't speak gut lining until I realized, no, dummy, your body's trying to tell you something.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And how many of us are eating gluten and not knowing this? How many of us are eating gluten and going to the rheumatologist and they're saying, oh, you might have rheumatoid arthritis or you have early onset some sort of joint disease without knowing that, whoa, every time I'm eating gluten, that's the cause of my joint issues. I mean, I know for sure that my skin in my hand starts peeling every time I have gluten. It took me years to find that out.
But they probably didn't give you a psoriatic diagnosis of like,
No.
you're fine, whatever, it's
Yeah,
rash,
yeah, it's a rash.
right?
Yeah.
Go away.
Yeah, dermatologist was looking at it and he's like, "Oh, here's your cream to put on it." But no one mentioned gluten back then. And it was me who goes, "Wait a minute. Maybe if I remove all of this wheat that I'm eating, the wheat bread that I was eating, it went away." And like I'm more in that like, yeah, every person on some level they're affected by it. I remember my friend, he's like, I can eat everything. And when I told him, hey, maybe if you just lay off, just see how you feel, he didn't even know that he wasn't feeling like himself fully because he just thought he was so resilient to everything.
Mhm.
But when he removed that gluten from his diet, he started feeling much better. And he's like, whoa, is this how I'm supposed to feel? Like, yeah, I haven't felt like this. That's because that was his baseline, like you said.
And we're great at coping.
We're great at coping, man.
We're so good at coping. It's just like, yeah, whatever. My joints hurt. I got to go to work. Or you could go to work with joints that don't hurt.
That's right.
What does that look like?
Oh yeah, that's a whole new level. And you're not on the dairy. And is it problematic really, like getting like eating dairy? How is it affecting a lot of people? Is it a respiratory thing, a skin thing? Is it a gut thing? Is dairy the same as it is in different countries? Like, what's going on with that? It's too controversial at this point, I feel.
It is. And look, not all dairy is created equal, and some people do fine with dairy. So I'm just, my whole thing is, I don't like, look, we could do a bunch of expensive tests and do, all the Cyrex arrays. And,
Yeah, yeah,
it's very easy as like a functional medicine physician to say, oh, I got this. I'm going to throw 30 grand worth of tests at you and we're going to know what's
mm,
up. And most people are like, dude, I can't afford that.
yeah,
Right. And so what is I don't want to say poor man's way, but the sensible way of doing it before going into all of this really high cost, worthwhile testing is elimination provocation diets, right? Which is, let's take dairy, let's take gluten, let's take sugar, let's take corn, let's take soy, let's take peanuts, and depending on,
yeah.
whose version of the thing, there's maybe 4 or 5 more ingredients in there, artificial sweeteners. Let's take all that crap out and let's just not eat any of it for 30 days. And then we're going to add them back one at a time over a 4-day span to see, because there's a latency period. It's like I could have an egg and be like, oh, I'm fine. And then 2 days later, I'm like, why do I have this headache? Right. So
Right, the latency.
yeah, it's, you got to wait and see. And it's hard because you got to be patient, but it's cheaper because you're not eating, the foods and whatever. And you will be shocked, not you because you're in the business, but like our listeners, you'll be shocked at what percentage of people don't even come back. Like, yo, I'm fine. Okay. So eggs for you, dairy for you.
Mm.
And so I'm not like a one size fits all guy where it's like, oh, don't eat. It's, hey, look, if you could have dairy and you go off dairy and you could put it back and you could kind of definitively feel no difference. And if you want to test on it and see if you have any sort of immunoglobulin issues, you can do that too. But if you go through that and your body says and the book says dairy's fine, good for you, man. That's great.
Mm,
Eat some ice cream. That's,
hmm
lucky guy.
hmm
Right. And so I just think that we need to think about that individually and say, okay, what settles me? My grandpa lived to 104. COVID killed him. Right.
Whoa.
But he would just you'd go somewhere and he'd be like, no, I don't eat radishes or whatever it was, right? And you're like, Grandpa, why? He's like, they don't sit well with me.
He knows.
Why the hell would I eat something that doesn't sit well with me, right? And so, but we're like, oh man, pizza,
Hmm
right? And our attention span is so far gone that we can't stop and say, monkey, no, that's gonna hurt you.
Yeah.
It's gonna hurt you. Don't do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. But we just jump in.
Pizza.
I mean, yeah. And how many people drinking alcohol knowing they feel like shit when they drink alcohol? And it's just like, how destructive is that one of the main things right now? People who are drink, is it hard to heal or get better if you have an alcohol based diet, basically like once a week, how bad is alcohol?
I don't know a single person who's gotten an aura ring who hasn't been convinced that they're an asshole to their body if they drink alcohol.
Hmm.
You just see your sleep quality go, right? And you're like, oh, what was that? I drank, right? And so, and look, we all got away to a certain extent with drinking alcohol. I got away with it. You go out, have a glass of wine, whatever, 20s, 30s. Once I got into my 40s, and that's kind of where it falls off, where the liver is just no longer able to conjugate, is not able to process and metabolize alcohol the same way. And people are, oh, I can't drink anymore. I can't drink anymore. It's like, no, you can't. So let's find a new form of social lubricant that doesn't poison you. It's not worth it.
Mm.
It's not worth it. Now, listen, if you're at your best friend's wedding and you're holding up some champagne, I mean, there's a time and a place where you say, okay, I'll take the hit, right? But if you're regularly drinking alcohol, you're just punching yourself in the kneecap before a marathon
Mm.
every day. It's just not worth it.
Hmm and it becomes that's you said social lubricant. That's the thing. People don't feel comfortable enough in their body, oftentimes socially, so they need to loosen up and get into their body and sort of get away from those repetitive thoughts just to even be social. So every time I talk about it, I challenge people like, okay, well, what does it feel like? Can you bring awareness to how uncomfortable you may be with so much energy around you,
Hmm.
or the person that you want to talk to across the bar? Do you feel nervous? Like these things are, you have to be able to go through them because drink in your 40s. I mean, I stopped drinking a while ago, but I can't imagine if I had a drink of alcohol, even a glass of wine, how much I'd be in pain the next day, you know?
I'd be in the pain the same night. That's when I knew the
Wow.
party was over. And my wife likes wine,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so like
yeah.
I'm not a drinker, but like it's like you're
Sure,
married, right? Like
sure, sure,
you're
sure.
with
Yeah,
people and
yeah,
you
yeah,
want to
yeah.
do stuff. And so I would be like, I have a headache 2 hours into this evening after having like one cocktail.
That's crazy.
And you're like, okay, so I could either fight through this or feel sorry for myself, or just be like, well, this guy doesn't drink,
Mm,
right? I can't afford that. My family can't afford that. My kids don't deserve that tomorrow.
mm-hmm. uh, Viewers and listeners feel into that, right? Like if you're drinking and what part of you chooses to drink, and I talk about a lot about it because I know how destructive it is to every system in the body. We're talking about gut, we're talking about liver, we're talking about even brain. Like it's massive, and if we can just remove the alcohol or just lower it in half first
Mm,
and notice how much better we feel. There's not one person who's like, I feel better as I get older drinking alcohol. Everyone is getting worse and worse.
yeah,
It's not like we were when we were 20,
yeah.
it's just different. You mentioned focus. You just mentioned about focus. And I know a lot of your work is like in the focus and attention, especially even in your past with the meditation and just like the whole ancestral connecting to us, like the cool stuff. I love that stuff. How many of us have the shortest attention spans? Is it because social media? Is that exclusively why? Is it because of our phones? And how detrimental is it now to our physical health?
I have been really engaged in this dialogue for a couple years now where I'm like, I first got on being like social media is the devil, right? And I'm no staunch advocate for social media,
Yeah.
right? Let me say that social media has been they're selling your attention to the highest bidder. And if your attention isn't folded back on your own life and your own life's priorities and your family and your health, and you're watering the wrong plants, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to go buy a Toyota. It's just, you're
Mm,
just being a blind zombie in the world. But really, as you start getting into the reasons of these stimuli and these triggers pulling us away from our lives, it's really, what is this drive towards distraction in the first place? Like, what made me think that it's probably a good idea to thumb through TikTok right now instead of engage in the work I was doing, or put my phone down a
mm,
bit, like, hi, honey, you're home,
yeah.
right? And just be. And so I think what's happened is we're so stressed and we don't really have outlets. Goes back to the alcohol too. We don't have outlets for the stress, and we have so much internal noise reverberating that we just don't feel well, and we feel trapped in our lives in a lot of ways, right? It's the same thing with like kids. They like, the kids used to have free play. Go out and play in the street, come back when it's dark. Now it's like, well, you can't go out there. Everyone's a pervert. So you stay in
Mm,
here, and the only place they can explore is YouTube. And so they have this outlet for all these places they can go in these digital universes where they have agents that they could win, they could gamify, they have this like alt reality life where they can expand and let life do what it's supposed to do. And so the correction of that is to de-stifle their lives and let them do that in 3D.
mm,
And then what do I do? Like, is it easier for me to blow off steam by having a margarita, or can I go on a hike? Is it easier to blow off steam by like going and doing ayahuasca for a bender for a week, or having conversations with my wife on a weekly basis and having a better relationship
that's right.
instead of having to like, crack the tower with lightning,
Yeah.
right? And so I think it's also a question of how we're living and bringing our focus back to how I'm feeling right now and what do I need? Like, okay, I was in the car a lot today. I'm going to stretch my hip. I'm feeling a little antsy and anxious. What did I eat?
Mm,
What was that call I just got off that phone call with Jack, and I'm kind of irritated. What did he kind of poked at something I said,
mm,
right? And just using kind of our nexus of awareness to pull it back inward and become much more aware of what it is that's driving us, because that's what leads to the emotional eating. That's what allows us to be like, oh, I shouldn't eat the pizza, but I'm starving already.
mm,
Well, you were starving 30 minutes ago, but you missed all the cues because you were distracted. Right. And so focus for me has really kind of I've gone from like monk to doctor back to monk, right? Where it's like, wow, if we cannot harness our focus, we can't stay on any protocol, period. Right. So, patients would come in and be like, oh, look at this. We found all this stuff wrong with you. And here's the plan. And all you got to do is follow it. The hell happened to Bob? He fell off the plan.
mm.
Dude, the plan would just focus outward. Right. And so, how can I refocus my patients back on the work that's in front of them? How can I refocus them on their priorities? Not Instagram's priorities for you, not the blue team or the red team's priorities for you, not what my team won tonight. Oh, that should make me happy.
Yeah.
But like, how much quality time am I spending with my kids? Do I have a real relationship with my wife? Am I actually working out for fitness, or am I working out because of guilt? Like all the
Yeah.
big questions, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we can do that if we set aside just a little time to start prioritizing and going, okay, the focus of the priorities in my life matter more than just scrolling. But man, it's like it's designed to keep our attention, right? It's designed to optimize our time on the phone. It's like I see people at the bus stop. I see people, man, I see people at the supermarket just scrolling. You want to use the word zombies, like I probably many times a day look like a zombie, like just answering messages and scrolling. It's incredible how much energy that it can take away from us and redirect it outward for the viewers and listeners. Is there a practice that you do? Like, do you have some sort of ritual, or do you have some sort of, I know from 1 to 2, blah, 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 so we can start integrating it to make our lives just breaking that cycle?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for chunk time and time boxing and just being like, look, from 2 to 3, I'm working on X. That's all I'm doing. Right. And just giving yourself time and saying, look, here, I use my social media time, free flow.
Hmm.
If that's an important part of your life, I'm not going to take it away. It's not, who am I to take anything away from anyone? Right. So allowing yourself to manage your time schedule based on your priorities, I think is a big one. But I also think that there's a lot of AI, there's a lot of really smart people working to game your attention once you look at that thing.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, you're in trouble. So really minimizing the amount of times you check in on it will keep you less distracted from your day. And then to me, focus is like pull-ups. It's like, oh, I'm not good at pull-ups. Okay, well, have you tried assisted pull-ups?
Yeah.
How do you start doing pull-ups? And so, one of the things that I really like for focus, and I have a whole battery of these things that I teach my students, but is if you look at an animal out on the prairie that is in rest and digest mode, it's calm, it's relaxed, and its eyes are gazing out towards the periphery, scanning for danger, but not in a sympathetic state. And what's happening with us is because of our stress, because of our devices, because of the world we're in, we're all just boom. And so one of the counteracts for this attention economy is I just have to go to a window. If you can't even step outside, we go stand outside, put your hands out to both sides until you can see them in your peripheral vision, and take 8 breaths in, nose out, nose, looking at your hands through your periphery.
Mm, I like that.
And it's just a neurological hack to just bring you back into this rest and digest and defocus the eyes from this. Like, this is what happens when a predator's coming. You're
Yeah.
chilling out here, and then you're like, oh shit, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming, right? And so we're here all the time.
Yeah.
And it reinforces the fact that the walls are caving in, the world is scary.
God, I haven't even thought about how evolutionary that is. Those signals, we're literally collapsing our focus into one thing in front of us. I would love to see, some studies where someone's hooked up and seeing like, does their skin conductance or sympathetic elevate every time their eyes focus onto their screen? Um,
I'll share it with you. So I'm working with a few neuroscientists now because, I love breath work. I love all the stuff
yeah,
that,
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
I'm a Taoist, right?
yeah,
So there's so much coming out of this breath work thing. Like Wim Hof popularized it, but, people have been doing breath work for a very long time,
yeah.
right? But one of the ingredients that is a big part of my Taoist alchemical lineage and a lot of what we do in the kind of internal arts, no one's been looking at in a meaningful way, except maybe the EMDR folks, is eye movement. So there's a lot of things that we do in the Taoist arts where it's like I'm watching my hands turn in the periphery here. I'm watching something happen over here. So it's really engaging the peripheral vision in different ways.
Hmm.
And you could see the sensory motor strip light up, and you can see the brain just shift in ways where they go back to parasympathetic,
Mm,
and you can see in certain things, and I'm not going to, we're not publishing this data for a while, we're still doing it, but prefrontal cortex starts to get engaged again. You start to see cortisol levels come down, you start to see the amygdala rebalance. I mean, all sorts of things with just taking the eyes away from the threat
yeah, yeah.
and expanding the awareness to be like, it's, and again, we'll go back to like, dude coming back from Europe. What is it, baby? It's safe. It's safe. Like, how do you make the baby safe? The body is like a baby. It doesn't know how to
Mm,
talk. It's crying. How do you
mm,
make it feel safe? How do you pet it back into safety?
mm.
And just these little neurological um, hacks, if you will, that, and the hack is a tough word for me because it's such like a modern word,
Yeah,
but I've been doing this ancient Taoist stuff for a long
yeah.
time with electrodes on, right? Like I had a brain lab in 2003,
Mm,
and we've been looking at this, and it's very definitively doing powerful things that we know NF kappa B, we know brings down inflammation. There's
hmm.
just a lot that's happening around that. And I think this is just the beginning of a renaissance of us understanding how to just use our own internal brain chemistry with just breath and eye work to synthesize the neurochemistry
Amazing.
that we want.
I love that. Amazing, man. And this is the third time someone mentioned like peripheral gaze this week. So now I know something's happening here.
It's up for you.
It's up because I did a somatic dance 3 weeks ago, 3 days ago, and they were very focused on not having us focus on anything. So we had to relax our eyes And when we moved, we were supposed to see everything, but not keep our eyes on one thing. We're supposed to let our eyes flow through everything we're seeing, kind of like babies, while moving our body. And it was powerful. It was powerful because everything became waves.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was in waveform. And it was like the experience of life in wave. And I was like, this is incredible, man. And it opened me up. I started channeling stuff. I was like, this is dope, you know?
That so right there is the metaphysical juju that people are trying to get to in all their ketamine and all that. It's a
Right.
natural state that you were able to get to by defocusing your eyes. And that state right there is the state of potential, right? Collapsing the wave ends up creating the physical reality that you either like or don't like, or, try to
Yes.
manifest and all that. But being in the realm of potential and seeing kind of the squishy waveform, visceral,
Yes.
you know, feeling of that opens you up to your God self.
Yeah. And that's what happened. Like I felt this like charge of energy. My hands took over. I started moving. I go, okay, this isn't me moving my body. Like this is something that is happening out. I've channeled before, but like that was me first time ever channel moving. Usually it's just like writing or talking, but it was like crazy. And it was a few days ago.
Dope.
So I love that we were talking about like just, and it was all because my eyes stopped like focusing on everything around me. And you saying it here, it totally just like tied it back together. So I love that because you gave us a practice that we can totally do. We could just take 8 breaths like that and unfocus our awareness and attention, even when we're starting to feel anxious when we're on the phone or anything like that. I love that. Is there any other potent, anything that's really weighing on your heart that you really want to talk about that any of the viewers or listeners should know before we wrap it up?
Yeah, one of the things that's come up for me, and thank you for that, is really all of these problems that we're having in our world, whether you look at the political sphere, war, and first of all, a lot of this stuff was predicted in the climate models 30 years ago, right?
Mm,
Oh, the world's going to get hot, the crops are going to fail, and everyone's going to get mad at each other, and then blame the Mexicans or blame the
right.
yeah, it's just it's predictable bullshit, right? It's you get into this like this thing, and hate doesn't solve any of those problems, right? And so how do we go back to love? How do we go back to solutions? It has to do with what we choose to do, not what we're driven to do by emotion and what we're driven to do out of panic. And so the crisis of consciousness is upon us, right? If you are horizontally feeding, looking for answers and solutions and what's going to make me feel good and what thread, in TikTok is going to, engage
Mm,
my attention for a minute, you're just kind of stuck in this horizontal feeding frenzy of not knowing where to get whole instead of lining up and feeding vertically and refocusing your attention back on who am I who just asked that, and what is important to me, and then bringing that kind of nexus of focus and attention back on your individual self. You step back into your power, you step back into your agency, you become less reactive, you become the king or the queen of your own domain, you take control of your health, you don't ask people to protect you, like
mhm.
you become a substantiated human organism that's powerful and strong and is not to be manipulated. Then start buying organic, then stop, buying shit you don't need, then, do all the things.
Yeah.
But it's very hard if you're like listening to one influencer or another, but you're just waiting for someone to tell you what to do. You're the person you've been waiting for. And that is not a popular message. But I'm telling you, that's the deal. You got to wake up to yourself. And then all the other problems start to solve and resolve around
Mm. Amen to that, man. That I felt that in my bones and in my fascia. I felt it, man. And that's true, right? It starts with us. We've collapsed all of we want, hey, this person has to tell me what to do. And then next week, oh, wait, this person now knows what I need to do. It's a state of anxiety that we live in, always looking outside of us, you know?
and we're never happy. It's like, oh my
Never
God, this
happy.
guy, I've been following this guy. He's brilliant. Oh, he eats meat. Oh, he voted for Trump.
Right,
Oh, he
right.
wears green shoes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
now I
yeah.
hate this
Now I
guy.
hate
Who's
this
my
guy.
it's like you can't, humans are fallible, right? We all are. We have to accept that. But following a human is not the way,
Mm.
right? And it's about finding the way in your own heart and waking up to who you are.
Mhm.
And, it's just we're with this long chain of disappointments because we're looking for some perfect person to tell us how to live. It's not going to happen.
No, never gonna happen, man. Oof, thank you. Where can the viewers and listeners find your information? How can they hear more of you?
Yeah, simple. theurbanmonk.com. All my films, all my books, all my stuff. That's where I hang out.
Go now, right now, after this podcast, or put it on pause right now. Go check it out. The book Urban Monk. How long ago was that
It
released?
was what, 2016?
Yeah,
Yeah,
2016. Okay.
2016.
If you ain't read that, what can we expect in that one?
Just keeping it real, right? Like when I started, when I came down and went from ascetic monk to householder, I realized the fallacy of my ways, standing on top of a mountain saying, hike up to me and I'll exalt you with
Yeah,
wisdom.
yeah,
And I realized people don't have time for that shit. They have jobs, they have kids, they have mortgages. They don't live ascetic lifestyles. So then I had to walk down and understand their pain. So it's just real brass tacks, get real with people, show them how to feel better, but then don't squander that energy. It's like, I just put 20 energy bucks in your pocket. Don't go waste it.
yeah.
Invest that forward into a bigger, better, more meaningful life. And then your life starts to ignite like a star.
Mhm.
And then you are alive again, right?
And that's what we want, man. That's our soul. We are here. That's our duty, right? To come back to that and embody it. So thank you so much for coming on the show, man. A lot of wisdom. We went from the physical to the stuff that I love, the metaphysical, the energy, conscious, and I felt very complete in this conversation because of that. That's real medicine. That's how we have to do medicine in this world. Not just look at one way, look at the whole system. So thank you for the light you bring to this world, your information, your wisdom. I'm thanking every viewer and listener through me. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.